So this is that document, and these are all the instructions for installing Unity. And the best way to install Unity is from Unity Hub. So please follow these instructions. So I have mine already installed and downloaded. So I'll just open it. And so this is what Unity Hub looks like. So it's basically a hub for storing all your projects and all your Unity installations, right? So you can have many different Unity versions at the same time. So for example, if I click on installs here, you can see all the Unity versions that I have. Like, it's a lot. So this is a good place to organize everything. And today we'll be using this one, 2019.4.16. And so if you go back to projects again, so to create a new project through Unity Hub, you have to click on new. Or if you want to choose a specific version, in which if you have multiple versions and if you want to choose a specific version, you can click on this drop down and you can choose which version you want. Here you choose the which template you want. The most common template is 3D. If you are developing a 2D interface, then you can go with 2D, but the most common one is 3D, and that's what we'll be using today. So I'll just name this project. And then I'll click on create. So I'll teach you through the Unity layout and interface and all the different windows and basics, how to move around in the scene and all that. So the first, so I created a schedule. One second. Yeah, Unity tutorial schedule. So this is the schedule we'll be using. So till 3, we'll be doing the Unity intro and interface basics. Then from 3 to 3:30, I will teach you about Pro Builder, lighting in Unity, importing models, and how to use materials in Unity. And then from 3:30 to 3:40, we'll have a short 10-minute break, and I can clear any doubts that you might be having at that time. And from 3:40 to 4:30, we'll be covering animations, user interfaces, basic scripting, and how to build your app to Android. Okay. Yeah. So our Unity is window is now open. So when you create a new fresh project in Unity, this is what you usually see. And so I'll just explain all the different uh, windows over here. So I'll start from left and move on to the right. So first, so let me start from the scene view first, because that's the most basic. So this is called the scene window here. And this is basically your playground in Unity. Like whatever objects you put, everything will be in the scene window. Whereas the game window is what your end user will see. So whatever objects you put in here, you can configure it to however you want, but the game window, the end view is what the user will see is represented in this game window. And this is your hierarchy window, and the hierarchy window basically has all the items that are in your scene. So right now this is a scene here, it's called sample scene. If we enlarge the drop down, you can see we have a main camera and a directional light in the scene. So I'll just go closer. So you can zoom in and out with your mouse wheel to go closer and zoom back. So we have a camera and we have a directional light. So the camera is basically what you want the end user to see. So what this camera is seeing is what the user will see in the game view. So I'll come back to that and explain it in more detail after I cover all the windows. And so one thing you notice is when you click on an object in a hierarchy, you can see this inspector window populate, right? So the inspector window basically contains all the properties of the object. So if I click on directional light, you can see all the properties of the light object. If I click on camera, you can see all the properties of the camera. So the first property is the transform. So that's basically the position, rotation, and scale. So it's in 3 axes. So your position is, so if I make this, if I push it away, it's gonna, so I'm increasing the z-axis position. So if I do this, it'll come closer. And this is the rotation, and this is the scale. And this entire thing is called a component, right? and this entire thing is called another component. So this is the camera component, this is the transform component. So the camera component has all the properties of the camera, and there's another component called audio listener. And you can also attach more components to that object if you want, and I'll get back to that later on. Next, we have the project window, and the project window is basically all the assets, all the files, all the audio files, videos, documents. So you can store everything, all those assets in this project window. But whatever you store in the project window won't come in your scene unless you put it in the hierarchy. So this is just a storage area. Yeah, it's basically just a storage area. And this is the console. Console is, if you guys know JavaScript, you know that in Google Chrome has a console and where you can debug your JavaScript code. So it's a similar to that. Unity has a console for debugging C# scripts, and we'll also get back to this later on. Okay, so we covered the scene view. Now I'll show you how to navigate around the scene view. So I showed you the zoom in feature, right? So I'm basically scrolling on my mouse wheel right now. So another way to navigate is called the hand tool. So the hand tool is over here, is on this corner here. So I click on that and I can pan around like this. So left click and drag. So I can pan around like this. And another way to navigate is by holding Alt on your keyboard. So if I hold Alt, so I'm holding Alt now, you can see that logo changed, shifted to eye like icon. So while holding Alt, if I left click and drag, I can move around in this. I can look around from that same point, right? So if it's only the hand tool, I can move around like this. If I hold Alt, I can move around like this. And another way is to use the right click on your mouse. So if I hold right click, I can do this. So my position is the same, only my orientation is changing, right? And then there's zoom again. And another way to zoom is by holding Alt and right clicking. So you can zoom like that. If you left click, it moves like that. It's familiar. And a neat handy little tool is if you put some object and you want to reach it quickly. So let's say I want to go to the camera and I'm somewhere over here, and if I want to go to the camera quickly, so click on your camera, bring the cursor to the scene view and click on F. So F means focus, so it brings that object into focus. Okay, so now let's add some objects into our scene. So to add an object into our scene, I'm going to go to my hierarchy and I'm going to right click and click on 3D object. So you can add any object you want. So these are called primitive objects in Unity. So I'll start with the cube. And we added a cube there, so I'm going to press F so we can focus on the cube. So now if we go to game view, so you can see that cube is now there in the game view. So whatever the camera is seeing, you can see the camera's orthogonal axis. So whatever the camera sees will be visible in the game view. So if I move the camera in the x-axis, so if I move it that side, so the cube will be rendered to the left now. Okay, so to move objects around in the scene view, so one way is to do it here, you can change the values directly, but another simple way is to use the move tool, which is this one next to the hand tool. So click on the move tool and you can see 3 arrows. So each one moves in its own axis. This is Y, this is Z, and this is X axis. So you can click one of those arrows and you can move the object around. And you can see the values also changing over here. Okay, and the other one is next to that is rotate tool. So rotate, you can rotate the object, yaw, pitch and roll. So you can see the X, Y and Z values changing. And next to that is the scale tool. So you can scale the object. You can scale it in this axis or this axis. If I want to scale it, if I want it object to scale equal in all directions, then I click on the center cube over here, and you can click and drag that. So it scales equally in all directions. We can see this object is this side, this face is dark, and this face is lit up because that's the way the directional light is currently facing. So it's facing this way. This directional light acts basically as the sun in your scene. So you can see the light is currently facing this way, and that's why that this face is lit and these sides are dark. And it doesn't, directional light, the position of the light doesn't matter. So you can see the light is behind the object, but it's still getting lit up here. So the position of the directional light doesn't matter. Only the orientation matters. So I'll just move this object a bit up. And then next, this move, rotate, or scale. So if you select this tool over here and you can change the position, you can change rotation and scale in the same UI. So you can change it here, you can move the object, or you can increase the size. And nice keyboard shortcuts for this is QWERTY. So its Q is hand tool, W is move, E, R is scale, and T is something different which I have not covered. I'll cover that when I'm talking about UI. And Y is for all three. Okay, so now let's bring in another object to our scene. So I'll bring in a plane. Plane a bit down. Let's see if it's. I'll move my camera a bit back. So you can see the camera preview here. You don't have to go to the game view and see it. Okay. So I haven't talked about what this play button and pause button are here. So this play button is for, so you click on play, it's when your game starts running. So right now we're just setting things up, but when you click play, the Unity starts actually rendering your game and calculating all the physics. And pause is to pause the game. So let me just show you a quick demo. So you go to cube. So we'll add a component to this cube. So let's add some physics component to this cube, and so that it can mimic gravity, right? So to add a component goes rigid body. So this is a physics component which provides physical properties to that object like mass, drag, angular drag, and all that stuff. So all this is accurate. So how much mass you mention here, like Unity will, if you mention a heavier mass, the object will, like, it'll pertain to that exact physical properties. All the physics calculations will be done for that mass. So you can see use gravity, and it's checked right now. So now if we click on play, let me move this a bit. So you can see that object fell down, right? So because we have put use gravity over here. But if we remove this, and then if we click on play, so you can see it's just hanging there. Unity does not know what to do with the object. So now if we add the rigid body, you can see the object fell down now. So one thing you have to notice is whatever changes you make when the game is in play mode will be reverted when you exit play mode. So I added this rigid body inside play mode. So if I exit play mode, you can see the rigid body is gone. So always make sure you're making changes outside of play mode and not while play mode, not while in play mode. So another thing is this thing over here. So this UI over here provides easy viewing. So if I click on Z, it'll provide me a quick look from the Z axis. If I click on Y, it'll provide me a quick top view, X. So you can use this for quickly moving about. And if you, right now it's rendering it in perspective view. So if I want an orthographic view, I can click on this center button over here, this center square, and you can see now it's an orthographic view. So this is easy to see if, so I'll give you an example. So let's say the object is over here. So if you want to know if how if this object is will it hit this plane or not. So I can't tell from a perspective view exactly. So what we do is go to orthographic view. So go to the top view and click on this object over here. So you can see that a little bit of it is on that plane. So this tool is useful for that if you want to make sure that two 3D objects are close to each other and things like that. Move this down. Yeah, one more thing I want to tell is, so let me add the rigid body again. So now if I remove this box collider and then if I click on plane, so you can see that object went directly through that plane, right? So why did that happen? Because Unity does not know what the boundaries of this object is. It does not know where to calculate a collision for this object. So that's what the box collider component does. So when I click on box collider, you can see a green outline. So that's the collider. So Unity, when we add the collider, Unity knows, okay, this is the boundary of the object and this is where the collisions should take place. And the plane also has a collider on it. It has a mesh collider. So you can edit that collider by clicking on this edit button over here. So you can pull it out. So now if I click play, so you see it's not very realistic, right? So Unity is only considering the collider's boundaries and not the object's boundaries. So I'll just quickly reset this and reset it like that. And I'll reset the cube as well. I think we covered enough basics. Let me see.
So anyone have any question at this point? So if no one has any question at this point, Rajshekhar, you may please demonstrate to add a few controls. That means something like a button or any other control where we can take user interaction and change the environment just like we do for a normal graphical user interface.
Yes, sir. I'll be teaching that from 3:30 to 4:30. So I'll put that in my schedule. So I'll just quickly show 1 second. Okay, so now I'll teach you the Unity Pro Builder, lighting and importing models and materials.
Anyone has any question, please raise your hand. Would have been great if you could follow it at your end. But if you haven't done so, we are recording it. So when you are ready, please follow this lecture notes. So yeah, Rajshekhar, you please go ahead.
Yeah, so I can't see if you have raised your hand, so if someone can.
I will interrupt you if there is any. I am online, so if there is any question, I will interrupt you. You please go ahead with your.
Just one question. How did you change that orientation from the right one? I mean, I'm trying, but I'm fixing one view.
On the right one, so I click on the object, rotate tool. What do you mean? I didn't get your question.
Okay, no, got it. I saw it.
Yeah, so basically you click on the rotate tool and you can change the yaw, pitch and roll. Okay, so next I'll be moving on to Unity's Pro Builder. So Pro Builder is basically a modeling tool in Unity for modeling simple shapes. And so it comes free within Unity. You can also use other third-party software like Blender and Autodesk Maya, Max. But your Pro Builder is a very simple one if you require very simple shapes. So Pro Builder is best for that. So first we have to install Pro Builder into Unity. So it does not default come with Pro Builder. It's a separate plugin. So I'll show you how to install that plugin. So we have to go to Window and we have to click on Package Manager. So this is a package manager. It's basically to install other plugins by Unity or any other third-party plugins. So all those are installed by this package manager. So it takes a while to load. So these are all the packages available for Unity. And make sure yours is not selected as in project, right? If you select in project, it will only show the packages that are already installed in your project. So you check Unity registry and I'll search ProBuilder. Yeah, so you can see ProBuilder has come here. You can choose which version you want. I'll go with 4.4.0. And here you can see this install button over here. So you can click on install. Okay, so you can see now it's installed, and you can remove it if you want. If you select this button, you remove it, and if there's an update, it will be available over here. So you can update it using this button. Now, right now it's up to date. I'll close this. So right now Unity is installed. I mean, ProBuilder is installed in Unity, but how do we access it? So you have to go to Window, and there'll be an option called, sorry, you have to go to Tools, and there'll be an option called ProBuilder, and you have to select ProBuilder window. And you can see a window opens here. So now you can dock this window wherever you like. So I'll dock it over here next to hierarchy. And so let's create a basic shape. Let's create a room. I'll click on new shape. Okay, there's a box which came. Wait, let me just delete that box. 1 second. Let me go back to ProBuilder and click on this plus sign. Yeah. So if you click on the plus sign, you can edit the shape exactly as per the dimensions that you require. So I'll just make a small cube-like. Then you can click on build and then close this. So now we have a box over here, but it's not exactly a room. It's just a box. So if I go inside the box, you can see that it's not nothing's rendered inside, right? So we want to flip the face which is being rendered. So right now it's being rendered at the outside, but we want to flip that. So select the object, and there'll be something called as flip normals. Okay. So you select flip normals. So now it's more like a room. So now if I go inside the object, you can see that now it feels more like I'm inside a room, right? So you can make any shapes using ProBuilder. You can make cube, you can make stairs, you can mention how many steps. How many steps, you can mention the width, you can make a rounding staircase. So there are a lot of different shapes: cylinder, door, arch, torus. So you can be creative and you can explore that. So I'll just delete this one. So one funny thing we notice is this face looks hollow, right? But if you go inside and then look out, now it's rendered. So that's what flip normals does. So it's now it's rendering on the inside. Once we're inside the room, we can see that all sides are rendered. So these sides are black because there's no light in the scene yet. So once we put a light, so you'll be able to see these sides as well. So as you move around the object, the side which you're facing, so that becomes hollow. So you can easily see inside the room what's happening. So I'll just close this ProBuilder window because we don't need it anymore. And I'll create a basic light in the scene. So to create a light, we go right click in hierarchy, we go to lights, and we already have a directional light in the scene. That's the sun which I talked about. And I'll create a point light. Sorry, not spotlight. Point light, yeah. So now you can see all sides are rendered. So if I go inside, you can see all the sides are rendered now. And I want to put this light in the center of my room. So I'll go to that orthographic view which I talked about, and then I'll move the light to the center, and I'll move it up. The properties of the light in the inspector window, you can change the range, how far you want it to affect, and you can change the intensity of the light. I think this is good for me. And you can also change if you want that light to render shadows. Right now it's no shadows, but if you want it to render shadows, you can do that as well. Now there are other types of light. There's spotlight, there's area light, and these are not lights. I'll get to these later. So spotlight is basically what the name says. So it's it just like it highlights a specific spot in your thing, and you can change the radius of that. You can move it bigger, or you can bring it closer. You can change all those things. I'll delete the spotlight. We don't need that. So now I showed you what lighting is, showed you the basics of lighting, but what if we, so right now so there's two kinds of lighting in Unity, right? One is real-time lighting and one is baked lighting. So real-time lighting is where what's happening right now. So Unity is calculating in real time how the light is affecting these walls, and it's rendering the output to us. What baked lighting does is Unity bakes the lighting before, and it stores the whatever the output is as textures. So during runtime, Unity does not calculate in real time the lighting. It just uses the textures which were baked already. So that is a good option if you know that there's not a lot of real-time interactions happening in your scene and it's mostly static. So that's a good option to use baked lighting, and it'll also result in less computational resources since Unity is not calculating the light in real time. So I'll show you how to do that baked lighting. So for that you need to open the lighting window. So I'll go to light, general, rendering, and lighting settings. So I'll dock this window next to inspect over here. So you can change how you want the windows docked, right? So Unity has a lot of the default one is what I'm using, but there are also other options here. So you can do it according to your preference. Okay. So right now you can see the bake global illumination is checked, but our Unity is not actually baking this light source. Why? Because we haven't declared this object to be static. So Unity only uses baked lighting when the object is declared as static. That means we tell Unity that this object is not going to move, so you can bake the lighting beforehand. So for that, I'll have to go to the cube, and there's an option called static option here. So we click on that static. And then I'll also have to go to point light, and you can see an option called mode here. Right now it's real time. We put it as bake. Go here. Now you can see that nothing's happening. Unity is not baking the light because auto generate is currently off. So if you select auto generate, so now you can see that Unity starts baking, and the progress bar is shown over here, the bottom right corner. So you see the ETA here for the baking. If you have a powerful GPU, you can also select the progressive GPU, but this is currently a preview. That means it's in beta, so it might not work as well. Right now it's using the CPU to bake the lighting. So this is one disadvantage of baking, is that you have to wait till it finishes, but it has a lot of benefits during runtime. Okay, so it finished baking, and you can see that the even these objects over here are reflected by that light, because we put, you can see the range of this light, it covers that objects as well, so even those objects are affected by that light. So now I'll show you a different kind of light which is called as emissive light. So if, let me create a 3D object, let me create a quad. So what emissive light is basically, we emit light from a certain object. So right now we are generating lights by using these point lights with the light component on them, right? So what if we want a specific object to emit its own light? So for that, what we use something called as emissive light. So for that we need to create a material. So I'll get into the details about the material in the next 10 minutes, I think. But for now, I'll just quickly create a material. I'll call this emissive. Give it a color. Right. Okay. And you can see this emission option here. So if you click that emission option, that Unity will generate light for that object. So for color, I'll give it reddish. You can choose the intensity of the emission over here. We are given the emissive material to this object, but I don't see any red light affecting our scene right now, right? So that's because we haven't declared it as static. Now you can see Unity is baking the light. And you can see now that you can see the light particles being reflected off that surface. Just baking, now you can see a reddish hue on the walls. So let me create another emissive material. So one thing you have to notice, if you declare the object as static and if you move it, Unity will rebake the entire thing. If you don't want that to happen, then you can go to lighting and you can switch off auto generate, and you can manually bake the lighting by clicking generate lighting. I'll just duplicate this object. I'll bring it to this side. Faces this side, and I'll duplicate this. I'll give it a different color. Acting and forming a hue. Green. Light particles.
Sorry, just saying that if it is keep on talking that what you are doing, probably later on it will be easy for students to follow.
Oh, yeah, sure, sir. Right now it's still baking, so you can see it formed a hue between red and green. That was.
Please speak a bit louder.
Is this fine, sir?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So that was lighting and backlighting in Unity. And we're importing models and materials. So in the link I shared in this folder, you can see I've included a model over here. So it's a bedroom model, and .fbx means FBX is Unity's file format for 3D models. You can import FBX and .obj into Unity. You can also import .blend, which is Blender's file format, but for that you will need to have Blender installed on your system. And most 3D softwares have an option to export into FBX, so don't worry about that. And also in this instructions document, I've included links where you can access 3D models for free, right? So you can check out these links. They also have paid models, so you'll have to put a filter if you want free models. And okay, let's get back. So you can download this bedroom 3D model, and I'll show you how to import it into Unity. So I've downloaded it here, so it's right now in my folder. So it's very easy to import. You just drag and drop it into your project window. So that's where everything will be. All your assets, materials, audio files, video files, everything will be stored in the project window. Okay, so it finished importing. So I just create a new scene because I don't want to work on this scene anymore. So for creating a new scene, so we already have the scenes folder here. I'll open that. I'll right click in the project window, go to create and click on scene. Yeah, scene one. I'll call this. And we need to double click to open that scene. So now we have materials demo open. So you can see whenever you create a new scene, these two objects will always be there, in camera and directional light. So I'll go back. I'll create another folder to organize my Unity project. I'll name this as 3D models. And I'll move my bedroom into this 3D models. Open that. And to basically put this object into the scene, right now it's not in a scene, it's in a project window. So you can either take it and drag it to your hierarchy, or you can drag it directly to your scene. So this material I downloaded from TurboSquid, and you can see there's a lot of lines going here and there. So basically these are all cameras that person has put. So I just delete all those extra cameras. Okay, so you might get this error that children of a prefab instance cannot be deleted. So what you'll have to do is right click on that object and select unpack prefab completely. Just give me a second while I delete all these unnecessary objects. So I deleted all those unnecessary objects. So let's check out. So this is how our bedroom looks. Right now it looks very bland, but that's because we haven't added any materials to it. So I'll show you how to create materials and how to access textures, and we'll basically make this look much better. Remove these curtains, enter our room. Just pressing the delete keyword, selecting the object and pressing the delete keyword will remove that object. This slide. We go up and let me orient my directional light. So you can see the shadows change when I orient my light. And create our materials. So I'll be introducing you to something called as PBR materials. PBR stands for physically based rendering, and it's basically it mimics real life properties of that object so that light can reflect as accurately as possible of that object, and it basically contributes to photorealism. So I'll go back. I'll create another folder called materials, and I'll put these two materials also in my materials folder just to keep things organized. And so let's create a material now. Let's start with the floor. We go to create and material. So I'll call this floor underscore. It's a good idea to always end your material names as underscore mat, right? So then if you want to search for your materials, when you put underscore over here, basically all the materials in your projects folder will show up. It's not mandatory, but it's just good practice. So what I haven't talked to you about is how to get access to the textures. So if you go back to my links, so I told you about 3D models. I didn't mention the textures. So we need textures to accurately reflect, give real life properties to that material. So we are now doing it for the floor. So we need something that can actually look like the floor. You click on this. I've given you two sites. One is freepbr.com and 3D textures. So both have free textures with them. So you can see all these textures here. So like these are concrete curtains and wood walls, leather armor. So there are various types of textures, and you can sort by category over here. So I'll click on floor. So you can see various kinds of floors over there. I'll just select a nice wooden floor, something like this. So once you select a floor, you come down and you click on download all the maps, right? So I've already downloaded it, so I won't be downloading it now. So if you click on download all the maps, you'll basically download 5 to 6 PNG images, and you import those PNG images into your Unity project. And the other side, you can also look here, floors. You can select whichever texture you want, so you can be creative. So I've already downloaded the textures that I need for this room, so I'll import that now. So I have it here in materials workshop. Okay, let me create another folder and call it textures. And I'll select all this. I won't select this one. And I'll drag and drop it inside this. Okay, so we have our wooden flooring texture over here. So this is our, you can see these are all PNG images. So these are called maps. So I'll explain what maps means. So let me go back to my material, click on my floor mat. So you can see that it's written here as main maps. So maps are basically what you assign here. So there's an albedo map, there's a metallic map, normal map, height map, occlusion map. So an albedo map is basically what gives color to that material, right? So let me make this red color and let me drag this mat onto the floor over here. You can see that our floor became red, right? But I don't want it to be that color. I want it to have a texture instead. So I'll go to that texture which I downloaded. So this is the albedo map. I'm going to take that, drag it, and drag it to this albedo map property and let go. So now you can see that it has a nice little wooden flooring texture, right? But one thing you notice is that this texture is flat. It's basically an image. It doesn't have any depth property to it. So how do we add the depth? So for depth is basically added by something called as normal map. So normal maps are these purple color maps here. So I'll drag that, drop it to normal maps, and click on fix now. So now this object has somewhat of a depth. You can increase that by increasing this. I'll keep it as 2. What a normal map does is basically gives a bit of depth to your texture. So now it looks much more realistic, right? And let's talk about the occlusion map. Occlusion map basically tells Unity how to reflect light off of the surface. So let's say if you have a rocky surface and there are ups and downs in a rocky surface and you want the downs to have shadows and ups to be lit by the light, right? So that's when you use occlusion maps come really handy. So it defines where the Unity has to render darkness and where it has to render light. So the occlusion map is basically this one, yeah, this white color one here. So you can see it says ambient occlusion.jpg, and if you click on this, you can see it says normal.jpg, and that's the base color. So I'll go back, select that material again, and drag this occlusion map to the occlusion property. So that change is very subtle, especially in this wooden flooring. You can't tell for sure, but it's there. So if I quickly move this, you can somewhat make out. I'm not sure, but if you're doing it with a rocky surface, the change is much more prominent. Now we made our floor. Let's make one for this bed blanket over here. Let's go to materials. Let's create another material and I'll drag and drop this onto the blanket. And we have a texture for that. It's called fabric. So I just downloaded this texture for the blanket. And make sure you click on that blanket map. And this is the albedo. So I'll drag it to the albedo property. So you can see that it gave it that base color. But you also notice that the material has some shine to it, right? Usually blankets don't have that shine to them. So what we do is you can see there's something called as smoothness here. So when you increase smoothness, Unity reflects more light off that object. And if you decrease it, it gives it a more matte finish. So right now our blanket should not have any smoothness property. And there's also a metallic property. If your object turn is very metallic in nature, then you can increase this one. So it's good for if you increase the metallic and if you increase the smoothness to full, it gives it and if your color is white without any texture, it gives it like a stainless steel like look. So that's one handy tip. So metallic I set it to 0, smoothness also I set it to 0, and this looks much better. I feel this texture is very small. So what if I want to increase the size of this texture? You can do that as well. Something called as tiling. So reduce the tile if you want to make it bigger. So I made it 0.9 and 0.9. I'll try 0.7. Now my texture looks a bit more bigger. It looks much neater. And now I will drag the normal map. Now you can see that it has the depth property, and you can also make out this quilts. Looks like a real lifelike. And the ambient occlusion is this one. So select the material again, drag the ambient occlusion to the occlusion. Again, it's a very subtle change, so you can't make out that well. So I think it's almost close to 330, and so this is basically how you go about assigning textures and materials to Unity. So I've included all this bedroom model and everything in that link which I shared. You can download that model. You can check out free textures from free PBR, and you can design your own bedroom, right? So you can get creative. I'll end it at here because it's 3:30. And if you have any doubts, I can clarify them now for you. Let's do this. Okay, we finished models and materials. Okay, so we have a 10-minute break till 3:40. If you have any doubts, I'll be happy to clear them now. Any doubts, anyone?
So what exactly is baking? I didn't understand that.
So baking, so there are two modes of lighting in Unity, right? One is real time and one is baking. So what real-time lighting does is it computes how the light is interacting with its environment in real time. So when your game is playing, Unity in the background is calculating all the lighting, right? What baked lighting does is Unity already, it does not do real-time lighting. It will bake the light and see how it interacts with the environment beforehand itself, before you enter runtime. And so that's what the loading bar I was showing, right, at the bottom right. So there's a loading bar which comes here at the bottom right, which shows the Unity's baking progress. So it bakes the light beforehand, and it stores that information, and it stores the information as JPEG images, right? And it uses that information during runtime. So during runtime, it does not recalculate all the lighting in real time. It just uses that already baked information which it has. So that the advantage to bake lighting is your game will have a lot more resources you can dedicate elsewhere rather than towards lighting. So that's one advantage. One disadvantage of baked lighting is if you have objects running around in that baked lighting, so they won't get affected by that lighting because Unity is not computing the lighting in real time. So if you have a lot of real-time interactions or things moving around, then baked lighting wouldn't be the ideal choice. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Sure. So now I'll be starting with animations. Let me back to Unity. I'll create a new scene for that. I'll call this cyborg scene because we'll be using a cyborg 3D model for this. Okay, so and I'll change my layout as well. I have a preferred layout, which is this. You can use any layout you want. And this is where my hierarchy window is. This is my project window, my inspector is over here, my scene and game window over here, and my console is over here. Right now we don't need the console. I'll close this. Okay, so now I showed you guys how to install using this the 3D models using these various sites, right? So you can check out those various sites. There's also the Unity asset store, right? So Unity has its own store where you can download assets made specifically for Unity. That just doesn't mean 3D models. It could be software assets and VFX assets audio files. There's a lot of things which I'll just show you now. So to access Unity's asset store, we go to Window and we click on Asset Store over here, or you can use Control 9, which is a keyboard shortcut. So the Asset Store will open here, and you'll need internet to access the Asset Store. So this is Unity's Asset Store. So you can see there's a lot of assets, right? So there's something called Dynamic Bone for easier animations. Gaia Pro is for creating terrains and worlds in Unity. So if you scroll down, you can find a lot of things. And it even has a lot of free assets. You'll just have to select that filter as free, and you can access all the free assets. So for this tutorial, we'll be using something called a cyborg character, which is this one over here. So this is a free asset. You can download this free asset. So here for you, it will say download. For me, it's already downloaded, so it says import. So for you, after downloading, it will say import, and so I go ahead and click on import. Right, it shows you what knowledge it's going to import inside your project. So if you want quickly open it, so it has a lot of built-in animations. So that's why we're using this model. So like idle, jump, run, walk left, walk right. And this is his materials. This is the 3D model .fbx, and they also provide a sample scene. So make sure all are selected. You can click on this to select all and click on import. Great, now we have imported the cyborg character into a scene. Click on the cyborg character, and these are all the folders which are imported. Now to access the model, you're going to open this model folder. This is the model. So you can see a preview of it over here. You can drag around, left click and drag around to view him from all angles. Now to put him in a scene, I'll drag it and drop this in the hierarchy. So you can see it's a bit too big, so we'll reduce his scale. So I can reduce his scale using this scale tool, or pressing R on the keyboard and reducing it like this, or I can just type the numbers here. So I'm going to make it 0, 1 on all sides. So now is the perfect size. I'm going to click on him. I'm going to bring him into focus by pressing F. Bring him around. And let's bring him closer to the camera. So he's a bit far away from the camera, or let's bring the camera closer to him. Let's also create a plane on which you can stand on. Right now, he looks like he's floating in air. Let's create a plane, 3D object, plane, and I'll reset this position. Transform, right click on transform and reset. Now it looks like he's standing on some surface. So I want to give this a more, right now the game view looks very boring, it's just facing him directly. So I want to give this a more better perspective for the end user. So what I can do is, instead of moving this camera about, I can select what I want the end user to see, right? So I can move the scene view itself, and then what you do is click on the main camera, and we make the main camera replicate this view. So for that, make sure main camera is selected, and you can press Ctrl Shift F, or you can go to game object and click align with view, or Ctrl Shift F. So now if we go to game view, you can see that the game view, the camera is aligned. So the camera came over here, and the game view, it looks a much better perspective. Now what this white camera symbol is, so those are called as gizmos, right? So they can be toggled on and off by clicking this gizmos over here, or you can reduce the size. So now let's start with the animations. So usually when 3D modeling humanoids, the 3D model is always modeled in this T shape. So that's why he's standing in this T shape. And now let's give him a idle animation to make him look like he's standing. Let's go to assets. I'll create a folder for animations. Open that. And to create animations, first I need two windows. So I'll go to window, animation window. I'll dock this over here. I need another window called the animator. So go back to animation and click on animator. I'll dock this next to animation. So animation basically defines the animation using key points and frames for the object. Animator controls which animation to play when. So one object can have many different animations. Like this object can have an idle animation, one fighting animation, one jump animation. So when each animation is played is controlled by the animator window. An animator basically tells what happens during an animation. Like for jump animation, it tells how each body part should move to create that animation. Okay, so now we click on to create an animation for this character. We click on this character in the hierarchy and go to animation window and select create. So you can see to begin animating Cyborg, create an animation clip. So select create, and we store this in our animations folder which we created, right? So I'll call idle, and the file type is called anim. That's Unity's file format for animations. I'll click on save. So you can see that in the folder, it created the idle animation, but it also created something else. So this is an animator controller. So it's basically this thing over here. I move in. Idle animation is over here, and so it says from entry, it directly transitions to an idle animation. What does that mean? Entry means when you click on play. So the first thing when you click on play, the object enters the idle animation, right? So, but we haven't told Unity yet how to what exactly is the idle animation. So for that, we won't be animating him right now because that takes a lot of time. So we'll be using the animations which was provided with this asset itself. So that's in this folder, Cyborg animations. So you can see all the animations here. The idle animation is over here. Open this drop down, click on idle. So you can see here it's a lot of keyframes, right? This will take a lot of time for me to do manually. So we're just gonna be copy pasting this into our animation. Click on animation, click Control A to select everything, Control C, copy, and I'll go back to our model. This is our idle animation, it's empty. Click on the window and Control V to paste it. And that's how we use this. So if we click play here, you can see the object goes into idle. He turned around because the animation is telling him to orient himself that way, but that's okay. We go back to our animator. So now I'll click on play and I'll show you how this animator works. Yeah, so let me play again. So you can see it's no longer in that T shape, and right now you can see the idle animation running over here, right? So it's looping. So there, if you don't want the animation to loop, you go to your idle animation and you deselect loop time. So that will stop the object from looping. But since it's an idle animation, we want it to loop. Okay. So let's create another. I'll come out of play view, play mode. Animation frame. Let's create a jump animation. Go back to animation. Make sure your object is selected. So this is an idle animation. If you want to create a new clip, click on idle, create new clip. I'll call this, save it in the animation folder. I'll call this jump. Save. And we're going to copy the jump animation also as we did last time. This is the jump animation. Control A, Control C. Go back to our model, go to jump, and I'll Control V, paste it here. Okay, now we have defined what a jump animation is. So if you come to animator, you can see the jump animation over here. It's right now gray color because Unity does not know when to play this animation. Right now, if we click play, Unity after entry it immediately goes to idle. We haven't told Unity when to play this animation, jump animation, right? So now how do we tell Unity that? So basically we make something called a transition. So right click on idle, make transition and select jump. So after the idle animation is over, Unity will move to the jump animation. And we don't want jump to keep looping, right? So we'll switch off loop time for the jump animation. Okay. Now if I click play, so you see after the idle animation it goes into jump. Even though this is moving, the animation is not looping, right? So it stays there now, and we want it to come back to the idle animation. So after jumping, so we make another transition and we select idle. Now if we click play, after the idle animation it goes to the jump, and then after jump it comes back to the idle animation. Okay, great. So technically, if you were a user, like you wouldn't want this character to keep jumping randomly, right? So you want the user's input to control this, to control when he jumps. So I'll be showing you how to do that by adding a button in the game view. So let's create a button here, and that will say jump. And when you click on that, only then will the character jump. So for that, what we do is click on this transition, which goes to jump, minimize this. We create something called as a parameter for this transition. So only if that parameter is met, then only the will transition into jump animation. So for that, go to parameters and click on plus over here. And you can select which kind of parameter you want. I'll select a trigger parameter. I'll call this can jump. So if every time this trigger is enabled, only then will it transition into jump animation. So let me show. Oh, I forgot to do one thing. We created the parameter, but we didn't assign it to this transition. So for that, click on this transition, come to inspector window, you can see conditions. Right now it's empty, so we click on plus. So we have added this condition. Only if can jump is triggered, then only it moves to jump animation. One more thing you can check here is called has exit time. So what has exit time means is that if has exit time is checked, and if we trigger the jump animation, Unity will wait for the idle animation to finish and then only transition to the jump animation. So if we don't want it to wait and immediately move on user input, then we uncheck this has exit time. Now if we click on play, so I'll click on this trigger. So you can see when I clicked on the trigger, it jumped, right? And then it comes back here. So it doesn't move to the jump animation unless this trigger is clicked. So how do we map this trigger to user input by creating a button? So for that, let me start off with Unity's UI basics. Okay. So UI in Unity is all placed in this thing called as canvas. So I'll just show you. So right click in the hierarchy, go to UI over here, and you can see there's something called as a canvas here. So click that canvas. So canvas is basically one large canvas which is very big than our character over here. So let me bring this canvas into focus by pressing F. And always when editing UI, it's always a good area to go into 2D mode, right? Because UI is in 2D. So go to 2D mode and you can see my canvas over here, this white thing. So all the UI you design will be on this canvas. So this is a bit tricky to understand how it would come in the game view. So let me explain through an example. So I'll create a button. Right click on canvas, UI button. And you can see a button showed up over here. So you can always, you don't have to always create the canvas and then create the button. I just did that to explain the canvas. You can directly go and click on button and Unity will automatically create the canvas and add the button as the child of the canvas, right? So you can see that the button is the child of the canvas over here. So okay, so we want this button in the center. We want it in this corner over here. So remember that tool I said I'll come back to later. We'll be using that tool now. It's called the rect tool, which on the keyboard. So first I'll make it a little bit bigger. So this rect tool is very helpful for this kind of UI manipulation, moving it around, increasing the size. And right now our button is anchored to the center. So you can see this these 4 triangles. That means the button is anchored to the center over here. You know, if we change the game view size, the button will always be anchored to the center, right? It's always some distance away from the center. Now, we want it to be, rather than that, we want it to be anchored to this corner over here. So for that, click on button. So you can see the button's inspector panel. It's a lot different than a normal 3D object. Instead of transform, you have something called as rect transform. And this canvas render image button, but don't get intimidated by this. It's pretty simple. First, we'll anchor this object to the right side. For that, we need to click on this tool over here. You can see that it's anchored to the center. Click on this, select right corner. It's this one, right? So you can see those 4 triangles move to the right over there. Now your button is anchored to the right. I'll move this button a bit more. So now if you were to change your game view, your button will always be that much distance from the right corner. And I also want to make the text bigger. So for that, open this button. You can see something called as text. So here, if you come, you can edit all the text properties of that button. So I'll increase the font size. I think that should be good. So you can always check in game view how it appears. And I'll also change the text. Let's say. So you can see how the canvas works in Unity, right? Even though it's a separate in the scene view, it's overlaid onto your game view, right? So if you can't see the character and all here, but so whatever the camera is seeing, the canvas is overlaid onto that camera's view. So that's how UI works in Unity. Okay, so let's go back. I'll come out of 2D view. We have finished with our UI. Let's go back to our cyborg character. He's over here. Okay, so I showed you how I created a button. Now we have to map our trigger to that button. So we do that by scripting. So how to Unity uses C# as the basic programming language. So I heard you're all familiar with C#, so this would be fairly simple for you guys. So I'll right click, I'll create another folder. I'll call this scripts. This is where we store all our C# scripts. Double click, I'll create a script here. Go to create C# script. I'll call the script as animation manager. Right, so I'll double click the script. Double clicking the script will open it in my IDE of choice. You can use any IDE. I'm using Visual Studio Code because it's very lightweight. So any new script that you create in Unity will always have these components over here. These are the libraries. These are C#, the .NET libraries, and this is Unity Engines library. So if we use this Unity Engines library, basically we get access to all kinds of the functions stored here and all Unity's various variable types. And this is a script we created, and you can see these two functions are already returning for us. So what do these functions do? So let's see. This is a start function. So basically, whatever commands you write inside the start function, though all those commands will be called every time you press play. Like immediately when you press play, right? Start is called before the first frame update. It means as soon as you click on play, the start function will be called. And we have a function called as update. Update is called once per frame. What does that mean? It's basically similar to a loop. So if your game is running at 60 frames per second, the update function will be called 60 times a second. So every frame your game is running, right? If it's running at a lesser frame rate, like 10 frames per second, the update function will be called 10 times in a second. So you have to, it's not an exact loop, so you have to be aware of that. No, we don't need any of these two functions, so I'll just be removing them. Okay, so first, so we need to map that button to our animator's parameter, right? So first we'll be creating a variable called public animator. So this is the variable type. So like how we have int float, this is a type which is defined in the Unity Engine library. So we'll call this, right? And I'll save the script. I'll come back, go back to Unity. So right now you have to notice one thing is that our script right now is in the project folder, and it's not in the scene, so it won't have any effect to our game. So we need to move the script to our scene, right? So I'll create an empty game object. Right click, create empty. I'll call this animation manager as well, and I'll reset the transform. And now it's very simple. You just take the script and drag it to that object. So now your script is in the scene and it's under this animation manager object. So your script, you can see it attaches as a component, right? So you can see the cyborg anim variable we declared here. You can see that variable come over here in the inspector menu. And right now it says none because Unity does not know which animator you're referring to. And you can see the variable type is in parentheses over here. So now we need to tell Unity that we are referring to Cyborg's animator, right? So again, it's very simple. We go back to our animation manager, just drag this cyborg object over here and let go. So now the script is referencing the animator, this animator. So it's as simple as that. Okay. Now let's create a function called, every time this function is called, the character has to jump. And we have a reference to this. So we'll be calling a function which is defined with this variable of type animator. It's called setTrigger. Trigger, and it takes a string variable. So what is the string variable? It's the trigger's name called canJump. So I'll just copy this right over here, and it's as easy as that. So we created a function. Every time this function is called, it will go to this animator, the cyborg animator, which it's compiling. So cyborg animator, which we defined here, it already knows which animator to refer to, and it sets that trigger canJump. So it goes to that animator, it calls this trigger. As simple as that. Now we have to map this function to our button. So go back to our Unity window, go to our canvas, go to the button. I'll close this, and if we come down, you can see the button component over here. So I'll just minimize all other components, and we have a button component open. So if we come down here, you can say it says on click, right? So that's whatever you list here will happen when you click the button. So whatever you want to happen when you click that button should go here. So right now it's empty. We'll click on plus. Okay, now it's looking for an object. So our script is your animation manager script. It's attached to this animation manager game object. So like we go to a button, we drag this object here, and then we look for a jump function. Click on move function, go to our script, and you can see the function which we define, right? Jump. So we select that. So now on click is mapped to our function. So every time we press, now every time we click our button, the character will jump. So I'll just click on play. Now I click jump. You can see the character jump again. So it's as simple as that. Right. Now let's see what is next. Okay, so yes. So Unity is a game engine and it's a multi-platform engine. So it can build apps or games or anything for various platforms, right? For PC, for Mac, for Android, for iOS, for PS5, Xbox, Linux. Like a lot of platforms are supported by Unity. And for that, how do we select which platform we want? So for that, you have to go to something called as build settings, and under file, build settings. Or you can also do Ctrl+Shift+B. And this is our build settings over here. And you can see the platform and so many options over here. So you can do for all these options. And there are more options, but these are the default Unity options. There are other third-party players also release their own SDKs. Like Magic Leap has its own SDK for Unity. HoloLens has its own SDK. Like a lot of possibilities. So for today, we'll be selecting the Android platform, right? So right now, this is you can see the Unity symbol here that indicates that right now we're in the PC, Mac, and Linux platform. And now we have to switch to the Android platform because we'll be making an APK file. So select Android and click on switch platform over here. So it'll import all the assets again and make sure it pertains to that Android platform, right? So platforms have their own specific restrictions. So it just re-imports everything again and makes sure that everything is configured for the Android platform. And if you're using iOS, you can do the same thing. Click on iOS and select switch platform. And you have to make sure that the Android development tools are installed when you're installing Unity. I have included that in the instructions over here, right? So after you select Unity version, you'll need to select the Android build support if you're using Android, or select iOS build support if you're using iOS. So without those additional SDKs, you won't be able to develop for Android or iOS or any of these OSs. So okay, so now our platform is now shifted. You can see the Unity symbol has come on Android platform. So how do you build the app? So before building the app, there are some certain things to make sure of. First, in the scenes in build, right? Right now it's empty. That means there's no scene configured to build. So I select add open scenes. That means whichever scene is open, you'll add that scene to the build. So you can see our Cyborg scene is now here. Right now the Cyborg scene will be built to the device. And then you have to make some configurations in what we call as player settings. So these are configurations that you have to do. Even for iOS, there are some configurations. For Android also, there are some configurations. So I'll close this animator, and we don't need this windows anymore. Okay, so you have to define some company name or product name. I'm just calling. I'll make this version as 1.0. And here, if you come down, you can select what icon you want to give this app. You can do all those things. Resolution, presentation. You can select, like, if you want it to start in a specific presentation, like in landscape, or if you wanted to start in portrait mode, if you wanted to occupy full screen, or if you wanted to show the top menu. So all those things can be changed over here. But the most important one is this other settings. So here you can see all the graphic APIs your game is going to use. So right now it's configured to use Vulkan as the top priority and OpenGLS E3 as a second priority. And you can choose the color space here. And if you come down, you can see this is the most important one. Your package name has to be populated, or else the app won't run on your phone. So right now it's basically com dot your product name, your company name, and dot your product name. And you can choose the minimum API level. I'll set this to be Android 8 Oreo. And yeah, so these two are the main things. So you have to ensure your package name is done, and you have to ensure that for our basic app it doesn't matter, but if you are starting to using augmented reality and everything in your app, then you have to ensure at least a minimum Android 8.0 is enabled. Okay, so I'll close this other settings. Now I'll open my build settings again, Ctrl+Shift+V. And now there are two ways to build your phone. One is you can have Unity generate an APK file, and you can move that APK file to your phone and install it. Or you can connect your phone via USB to your system, and you can select build and run. Sorry?
डिस्प्ले जगह रहता तो सही रहता।
ये डेल टाइप्स है।
So you can set, if you connect your phone directly to Unity, you can select build and run. So what build and run does is it builds the app and it installs the APK. It directly installs the APK onto your phone. You don't have to worry about moving it to your phone and stuff. So right now I don't have an Android phone with me, so I'm going to be generating an APK file. So I click on build. I select, create a folder and I select in my APK and click on save. So now Unity starts building your APK file. So if you have any questions, you can ask now because this building will take some time. I can't see if you have raised your hand, so please unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, Ratchakar, this is Nrusing. So I could not get how this button event is handled in the script.
Sorry, I didn't get you. How?
So you have added one button. So on button click. So where it hits in the script?
Okay.
That is the entry point in the script for button hit event. What button click event?
Okay, I'll just tell you. Just give me one moment. Let this finish. Okay. So you want to know how the function is mapped to the button, if I'm not wrong, right? So this is what the function which we created, public void jump, and we are mapping this function to the button over here in this on click. So we selected plus and then we drag the animation manager component and then we select this function, go to our script, and this is the function that we created, public void jump, right? So that function shows up over here, jump, and we select that. So every time you can add multiple functions. Every time that button is clicked, this function will be called jump. And what that jump function does, it goes to the Cyborg's animator component and it calls this trigger can jump. So did that clear your doubt?
Yeah. I understood that. So suppose we want some special effect on the button itself. So how to refer that button inside the script? Suppose we want that on click, the button should be highlighted or some effect on the button if we want. Then is it possible to get a reference of button inside script?
Yeah, you can definitely create a reference of button inside script. I'll show you. So if you want to create access buttons or any UI components of Unity, you'll have to include another library which is using Unity engine.ui, right? And let me create a variable now. So public button. So you can so after you save this, you can access jump buttons properties through this script. It's compiling. And if I go to animation manager, you can see here it's looking for a button object. So you can drag that button over there, and then you can apply that button or have it do what you want. So there's a lot of things you can do over here. But if you wanted to show some effects, so for that you'll have to, that requires a bit more complexity for that. So it's not very straightforward, but you can change the image of the button. So right now it says UI sprite can change the color of the button, and you can change what color you want it to be when you click on that button. Like suppose normal color is this, and if you highlight it, you can choose one color. for pressed, you can choose one color. For selected, you can choose one color. Did that answer your question?
Yes, yes, but one part still not clear. Suppose how the variable in the script is associated with this visual asset. So if we have multiple buttons, then what in the script distinguish between two buttons?
So it's what you call what you assign over here. So if I create another, if I create another button called jump button 1, and if I save this, so you can see another jump button 1 comes here, right? So you can assign another button to this. So whatever button you have assigned here, this variable is linked to that button. So if you have multiple buttons, you assign it accordingly to the variables.
Okay, okay, understood. So variable name doesn't matter, that association happens visually here.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's basically dragging and dropping. Okay, so I think our APK file is finished. Let me see, where is that? Demo 2. Yeah, so this is our APK file. So I don't have a device to test this, but I think I can use MSI's app player. Let's see. It's an Android emulator. Okay, it failed. I'm not sure if I can show you the app working, but if you followed my instructions, you can build the app to your phone and check it out. And also there's a recording available, so you can always reference the recording. Now, if you want to build for iOS, it's a bit more trickier than Android. For iOS, you will need to have access to a Mac OS system. So because Apple has made it such a way that if you want to push any apps to iOS, you'll have to use their own software, which is Xcode. Xcode is used to build Mac OS, iOS, tvOS, any Apple OS software. And so what Unity does in that case is it takes this Unity project and it converts it into an Xcode project. So that's it's very handy. And you then run that Xcode project and you push it to your phone using that Xcode project. So that's how you would do it for iOS. Android is more simple. Okay, I think it's 4:25. We have almost come to a close. If I cover everything. Yeah, I've covered everything. So if you guys have any doubts, I can clear them now.